Hello and welcome to my first ever monthly wrap-up. This August I read a total of 5 books and 2 of those were really big, so yay! The first book that I finished this month was The Luminaries by Eleanor Catton. This book is about a group of characters who all live in New Zealand around the time of the gold rush in the 1800s. This is the most exquisitely written book that I've possibly ever read. The only way I can describe it is like eating chocolate. It's so luxurious, I just want to like cover myself in the words in this book. It is so good. I know that it's in the style of like a Victorian novel, and I know that in writing people tell you not to describe the characters like they did in the Victorian times, but oh my god, the description of the characters in this book is so insightful. They feel so real and almost abstract that it's just perfect. It's the most beautiful writing style I've come across, at least this year. There are some really interesting characters in this book, like Lydia Wells, Frances Carver, Emery Staines and Anna Wetherell. I think those 4 were my favourites. They intrigued me the most, and I just love how the stories and the mystery all wraps up in the end. There's a rainbow on my head. Is there a rainbow on my head? There's a rainbow on my head, so I'm gonna have to move. I also really enjoyed the setting of this book. I've never read anything about New Zealand and definitely nothing ever about the gold rush in New Zealand. I didn't even know that was a thing, so I thought this was a really good way to learn about that, and it felt very well researched and just, yeah, really good. I didn't know how to feel about the way it ended, but now that it's been a few weeks and I've gone back to it and something in my personal life happened, I feel like I get it more. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars, and yeah, if you are not intimidated by the size of it and the fact that it won the Man Booker award, which you shouldn't feel intimidated by that, you should just go ahead. If this sounds like something that you would enjoy, you probably will, and at least if you don't enjoy it, you can read some of the beautiful language used by the author. I might write a review of this book on my blog. It's just very difficult for me to put into words how I feel about it, so that might take a while, and I will link it in the description once I have done it. So yeah, if you're interested, keep an eye out for that. The second book that I read in August was The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey. I really wanted something a lot more fast-paced to get into, just an easier read than The Luminaries, for a break, and this did not disappoint. I'm sure many of you have heard about this. I actually bought this book because so many people on YouTube seem to really love it. This book is about an alien apocalypse, and they basically take over the earth and lots of bad things happen, and the story follows quite a few characters and how they try to survive through that. One thing that I really liked about this book was that I felt all of the characters had a unique voice, and there was quite a bit of humour, which I wasn't expecting. The beginning did start off very, very, very dark and very depressing, but I think once the story really got going, then it got easier to, move away from that backstory, which is obviously going to be sad because everybody dies. The earth has been taken over and everybody dies. This book kept me entertained all the way through. I wasn't bored at any point, which is exactly what I was looking for at that point in the month. I liked that I never quite knew who to trust. The book was a little bit predictable in some places, but the thing that I could never predict was who was going to be the one that we couldn't trust and who was going to turn out to be the one that we could trust. I gave this book 3 or 3.5 stars out of 5. I probably won't be doing a full review of this book just because I feel like I'm very late to the game and a lot of people have already talked about it, so I would rather spend my time talking about books that I haven't seen being reviewed on YouTube before maybe. So yeah. The third book that I finished in August was A Feast for Crows by George R.R. Martin, which is the 4th book in A Song of Ice and Fire series. I absolutely love this book. I've made a discussion and a review on it, so if you want to check that out, I will leave the links down below. I will give a short summary of my feelings on this book now. So I thought that all of the plot and storylines in this book came together really well in the end, and I also really enjoyed some of the new characters that we saw, and without giving too much away, the plot starts to move forward in a very interesting way. And now I'll start before I give something away and spoil everybody. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The 4th book that I finished was Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I'm sure everybody knows what this book is about. It's about a young boy called Jim Hawkins who one day somebody comes into his family's inn and it kind of throws him into this adventure with these pirates, and they have a map and they go and look for treasure and pirates. Pirates! One thing that I really liked about this book was that it is a really accessible classic, so if you're intimidated by classics like I am, it's quite fast-paced compared to others and the writing is quite easy to read. Not the most quotable style of writing, not the most beautiful, but it gets the job done. And yeah, if you want an adventure story, definitely check this one out. Although I just said that it's quite fast-paced, it did feel like it slowed down a little bit in the middle, but my favourite parts were definitely the ending, so the bit building up to the climax and afterwards was just really great, really entertaining, so much fun. My favourite character was probably Dr. Livesey, just because he had some of the funniest lines. He's quite sarcastic. I gave this book 4.5 stars out of 5. I really enjoyed it. It did take me a while to get through for some reason, even though it's really short. I just took my time with it and yeah, enjoyed it. It's very good for when you want to escape into an adventure. And the last book that I read in August was Restless by William Boyd. I blame this on Captain America 2: The Winter Soldier because after that I've just been craving World War II and spies, so this seemed like the perfect book to go for. This book has a dual narrative, so it follows 2 characters, 2 female protagonists. One of them is Ruth Gilmartin, who lives in the 70s, and she is sort of juggling her life. So she's raising a son, she's a single mother, she is on a course at Oxford, and she also has a job, and then her mother starts to behave quite mysteriously, and quite quickly at the start of the book it comes out that her mother is not called Sally, her name is actually Eva, and she was a spy in World War II. Something I really liked about this book was that I felt like the 2 main characters were just so well written. Once I got to the end of the book, I had to Google William Boyd just to check that it wasn't a pseudonym for a female author, because I just thought that William Boyd wrote the female characters really well. The 2 storylines worked really well together. He sort of gives you a little bit of information in one story and then we switch to the other story and he gives us some information there. So you really want to know what's going on in both of them and you want to know how they're going to tie together at the end. There were obviously some really interesting characters other than the main characters in this book. There were obviously spies from World War II that were really mysterious and added a lot of intrigue. And then there were the characters in the 70s, so in the present. Some of those were really interesting and I would love to read a book about them. The only thing was that I felt like the storyline didn't really tie in at the end the way I expected it to, so I felt as though it set it up in a different way to how it ended. It was a little bit misleading, but that was the only thing. I felt as though the settings in this book were really well written and felt really authentic. The descriptions of the clothes in the 70s really made me giggle sometimes, and just those little details just added to the realism of it. Another thing that I liked was the fact that the whole spy aspect felt really real as well. It wasn't over dramatic and it wasn't, you know, like too action packed. It was a lot more based on being very clever. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars and I really enjoyed it. So if this sounds like your kind of thing, I would definitely give it a go. I have written a full review of this, which I will be posting on my blog sometime this week. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave the link once it's finished. So that's the end of my wrap up. I'm quite happy with all of the books that I read this month. Since September is upon us and everybody's going back to school and college and uni, good luck to everybody, and hopefully we'll get some reading done for fun, but most likely my next wrap up is going to be about books that I've had to read for uni. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe if you want to, and if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, please leave your thoughts, and yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye! Well, this is awkward because I've forgotten their names, but the abstractness is in my head. Train. It's so hot in here. I gave this book 3 out of... bleh. Ah, rainbows. Rainbows on my head.